Welcome to Spotlight with Abhijay. Let me ask you this. Have any of you followed the presidential elections last year? I did. And I did very closely. Listened to all the debates, followed the polling, and was glued to the TV the entire day. When results were coming out and I was doing math on electoral votes, what it will take for each candidate to win, I learned a lot about the government and how it functions. But until recently, I did not know much about the town government and how important role it plays in our everyday lives. For example, we all pay taxes to the town, but do we know how they're being used? And do we know that we have a voice and can vote on where our taxes will be used? Recently, I met Mr. Jon Benson at one of his campaigns for Board of Selectmen for our town. And I got to know a bit of insight on the local government. Today, we're going to know more about the town government, and I'm going to shine the spotlight on Mr. Jon Benson's journey over the last 3 years as the chair of Board of Selectmen. Mr. Jon has decades of relationship with our town and contributed to the growth of our town in so many ways. With his planning, experience, and vision, collaborating effectively with the other town leaders, he led many key projects for the development of our town and handling some of the critical issues we are facing now. Mr. Jon has not only led with competence, efficiency, and honesty, but also with complete dedication to serve. I am really delighted to have him on the show today. Please welcome Mr. Jon Benson. Hi, Mr. Jon. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
Abby, I'm fine, and thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to our discussion this morning.
First of all, I want to thank you for your leadership and service to our town over several years.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I've enjoyed it, and I will miss it.
So, I was reading about your journey from your career as a lawyer for 42 years and your wife, Miss Lynn, being the teacher at the Acton High School for 45 years.
That's right.
Your kids are AB graduates. You had several decades of relationship with this town, and you've been contributing in so many ways. Even after retirement, you did not choose to sit and relax, but you chose to serve the people on the Board of Selectmen. Can you take us through that journey and what really inspired you to come to public service after retirement? What was your motivation?
Yeah, well, it was really interesting. I could go back to 5th grade in elementary school in Queens, New York. I really got hooked on a political campaign in 1958. It was New York governor's race. And I always had that interest. And, I participated in student government in high school and in college, and I was a student government president in both places. I joined a town committee. It was I think it was the summer of 1982, where we were studying legal fees that the town was paying to town council. And I got to meet a group of really interesting people. And from there, I was recommended and served 3 years on the town finance committee. It was during that same time, 1986, I was asked to serve on a search committee to select or to recommend candidates for town manager. That's really, the most important job in town. When I started, I was on a library fundraising group in the mid-1990s, and I started because my interests were more on the school side at that time, because our kids were in school, that I started, seeking out, people to run for the school committee. And then I started doing that on the selectman side. From there in 2005 to 2010, I was on the Community Preservation Committee, and I became chair and vice chair. That's a really fun committee because you have, probably $1.5 million to give out each year for eligible projects. And I was on the search committee for town manager in 2006, 2007, and then again in 2017 and 2018. And I served on the finance committee again as an associate member from 2016 to 2018. So when I decided in probably late 2016 that 2017 was going to be my last year of practicing law, I said, now's the time to come and be a selectman. So the 2017 year, I spent sort of winding up my practice, finishing cases, and also going around town and talking to people, saying I'm going to run for selectman and getting people's views. And they were pretty responsive. They were very favorable. And I said, let me run. And I decided to run. So I retired at the end of December of 2017 and plunged right into this campaign at the beginning of 2018. I did wind up with an opponent. It was a great 3 years. It was a great 3-year experience. I had the energy, my head was still clear, and I got to meet, many more. I thought I knew a lot of people in town, but I, really got to know a lot more. And we did some very good things.
Wow. I read about you have been a leader from a very young age, right from high school and college, and you were part of election campaigns too. So I started to know more about presidential elections last year, and I was closely following it. But not until I met you for your campaign this year, I did not have too much of an idea on the local government. So, can you please tell me and my friends watching this show more about the role of Board of Selectmen in town government and what do they do and how do they help with the town development?
Yeah, here's the most important thing about being a selectman. In coming to the job, you have to come with no agenda and, more importantly, an open mind. Because, on any issue, there's going to be multiple opinions, and you have to balance all of these interests that you hear from people. And you have to work with your other 4 members of the board. And you have to make trade-offs. The resolution isn't perfect. It isn't necessarily exactly what you wanted, but you've got to make trade-offs to arrive at practical, solutions for everyday problems that we as a town have and people in the town have. What the selectman does by the town charter is really 3 specific things. We set goals each year for the manager. These are the projects we'd like to see you take on. We make policy for the town. We issued a number of policy statements this past year, and we do planning. Whereas the town manager is in charge of the day-to-day operations of the town. In a way, our most important job is selecting the town manager. So I said my most important vote was cast on April 8th, 2018, when we voted to, offer the job to Jon Mangiarotti. And he's been, nothing, short of spectacular, particularly in leading us through the pandemic. And, when you're working with the selectmen, we're the executive body of the town. We're like 5 co-presidents. They each bring their own interests. They're varied. They have interest sets. Dean Charter's been excellent. He's lived in the town for 8 generations, and he worked for the town for I think close to 40 years. His longest serving position was the director of buildings and grounds. So he knows everything about buildings in town. So he's always someone we lean to. And Jim Snyder Grant, on environmental issues. Joan Gardner lived in the town for 50 years, and she always can give us great histories, as did Dean. And David Martin is an engineer by training, so a lot of projects involve engineering. So it was really a good group where you'd always okay, most about this, help us out, and because there's so many different issues you come into that you.
Okay, so it's like the executive branch of the town, and they work with other town leaders for any important decisions related to the town. So then it's really important for people in the town to be involved more, right?
Well, yeah. Like there's two things. We have about 50 boards and committees in town. That includes the select board, the finance committee, the school committee, and about 250 individuals are involved. Some are on more than one board. And these people devote considerable time. These people are not career politicians. They're doing out of, I want to make my town better, I want to give something back. And now it's hard getting people to serve on these committees. I've spent, considerable time over the last 3 years, what I call bringing in the next generation of people in their, 30s and 40s. But it's really sort of a combination of bringing in younger people, and they will oftentimes give a somewhat different perspective. And you have to recognize the goodwill of the people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, who are retired. They still have the energy and also the clear heads to participate.
So, John, how do you make sure the town voice is heard in these decisions? And what are some of the ways that everyone in the town can get more involved and bring in their concerns?
Okay, well, people can certainly come to select board meetings. We do open the meetings with a section on citizen concerns. It's generally not matters that are on the agenda. Normally, if it's a question that a town department could handle, I would ask, John Mangiarotti either to briefly respond or get in touch with the individual who's speaking. And then at other times, during our debates, we welcome, citizen, comments on the issues that we're dealing with. Now, the biggest thing that people can do to participate is attend town meeting, but it's important. That's the most significant thing because, we appropriate over $100 million at those meetings, and people can make their feelings heard. No other part of this country other than New England, or really in the world, has a setup. And I just, go back to the book. Here's a picture of a gentleman standing up at town meeting. Anybody can get up and speak. Yes,
it is really important to be more engaged because any of the key town decisions impact everyone. So you were elected to the board in 2018, right?
Yes.
And as the chair of Board of Selectmen, you had initiated several key projects. We're getting a new school building with the new infrastructure, a new fire station to help improve the response times in the area. And I remember last year the Indian flag was hoisted at Town Hall. It was a proud moment for us all. And the Board of Selectmen played a big role in making that event happen. And many more great accomplishments in the last 3 years in your leadership. Can you talk about some of the most memorable moments as the chair of Board of Selectmen?
Well, I was particularly touched by the Indian Independence Day in August, because I brought a picture of my father, who served in the it was that time it was the Army Air Force. He was a dentist and was stationed in Accra, India, by the Taj Mahal, and I showed a picture of him. He sort of set up this whole thing where he was, drilling. So that that was there was a real connection there. The thing that the event that I was most proud of was the Kelly's Corner infrastructure project. This was a project that was been on and off since the 1970s, and we were able to get the state and federal government to commit to pay the cost of redoing the project. At the 2018 town meeting, the town meeting failed to appropriate the necessary monies that we needed. And my first job as a selectman in early 2018 was to go before the Metropolitan Planning Board, which controlled this $15 million that they had committed to us, and say, I'm sorry, it failed. Would you give us one more chance? And they said, we'll give you one more year. And if you can't get this supplemental engineering funds appropriated, this $15 million that would be going to Acton would be go to another town that has a project that's ready. So I set out, after that to say, okay, why did it fail last year? And I brought, I think Sahana Puri and Warren Rosenzweig, who was a former secretary. I said, look, let's work together and figure out what do we got to do better. We worked with the Kelly's Corner Steering Committee, Andy Brockway, and we figured out, what were the constituencies that were not on board, for this project. And so we spent a lot of time with people who spoke against the project. In early 2019, we held a series of coffees in people's houses in and around the Kelly's Corner area to fully explain the project. So we used town staff, Kristen Gouchard, who was excellent, to reach out in the evenings to various school and community groups. There was enough work to do, to get, many people involved in it, which we did very successfully. Where there's normally 350 people at town meeting, we had over 600 that came that first night when our project came for a vote. And we got 89% support, 89% vote in favor of the project. And then a couple of weeks later, the town manager calls me up and he said, I have some good news for you. I said, oh, that's great. He said, what's up? And he goes, the Mass Department of Transportation was so impressed with the turnout and support we engineered for the project that the state would pick up the $450,000 that town meeting had voted. So we saved the town $450,000. So that was really the highlight. So that was really town government at its best.
That's great to hear. Yes, in fact, we were driving by and I was thrilled to see the fire station almost getting to completion within a short time. My brother and I can't wait to get a tour of it when it's done. So, over the last 1 year, the pandemic has impacted everyone in the town in different ways. With businesses closed, people losing jobs. Can you tell us about all the work the Board of Selectmen and our local town government has done to help?
Yeah, it was a once in 100-year event. Our board we were meeting weekly, sometimes, 2 and 3 times a week, with the Board of Health. And everything was shut down. I mean, and it was always a balance of, the big thing that we do is, public safety and public health. And, getting everyone to realize that this was really serious. It was really contagious. And it, could have, devastating, consequences, to it. And, to me, we persevered, we weathered it. The real heroes, I've always thought were, our town staff. Their duties, their job, didn't shrink. If anything, their duties increased. In our public safety workers, our police and fire, they would still be out there, dealing with people issues and, running the risk of contracting the virus and also, bringing it home. And our teachers who just stepped up and adapted and kept our excellent schools, excellent. And our residents, 92% of our money for running the town comes from, property taxes. And we maintained our 99, percent, collection rate. The hardest thing was trying to manage people's expectations when there was still so much that we were, learning from day to day and week to week. And you couldn't tell anybody. There was no assurance you could give them. But, I just can't thank our town staff, our teachers, and our residents for everything, that they did to, get us through this. We persevered and we did. And, that's what we're about. And I think it's an experience that, you'll be telling your kids and grandkids about.
Yeah, difficult times. And thank you for all your work to help the small businesses in need. And so what do you think are some of the challenges the town is facing right now and opportunities ahead?
Well, I think an interesting issue, that the town's going to face is the Kmart parcel. That, along with the intersection project, are really the linchpins in improving the area. And we don't own the parcel. It's owned by Stop and Shop, and they're right now thinking maybe they might want to develop it for their own needs. There's a development company called National Development, which would like to build a senior living facility of 100 to 120 units of senior living, then assisted living, then memory care, with some commercial. From doing the Kelly's Corner project, what people most seemed to want on that parcel was some retail, several upscale restaurants. And then, what's come of interest to people, and this is what the thing to watch is, they'd like to see a community center, go on the parcel. That would require the town owning the parcel, acquiring the parcel. That's going to cost about $6.5 million. And then it would be another, $20 to $30 million to actually build a community center. So that's going to be a really interesting thing. I mean, we were talking about it last week where, one view is, we shouldn't be buying this parcel if we don't know what we're doing with it. And then there's a counter view that, this is our last undeveloped parcel in town. So it's always about balancing interests and trade-offs. That's really what it is. There's no one answer. We do our best to work together and come up with practical solutions. And the other issue that's going to come to the fore is we appointed last summer a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Commission to see if there are problems with underserved minority groups in town, and to make suggestions for dealing with those issues. And I've always looked at Acton as just a real example of a very successfully diverse community. First came a very interesting, vibrant group of Catholic residents, then Jewish residents, then Chinese residents, Indian residents, Latino residents, Black residents, and it's not without certain issues, but it's amazing how well we've done and how successful we've been. I don't think there's too many more suburban communities in Massachusetts that are, more diverse, than Acton is. I think it's really good and absolutely, all for the better. And, if there are problems, let's figure out what they are and solve them. We can do that.
Yeah. Also, it's important for everyone in the town to be more engaged and work collectively to bring forward the right changes. And even kids are never too young to understand what is happening around us. So, how do you think kids can get engaged and know more about the local, state, and federal governments?
Remember, government is about, it's delivery of services, and, they shouldn't be taken for granted that they just, automatically happen. They don't. Well, my wife ran for quite a number of years a high school, an internship program where I think it was at least for the semester, a student would be assigned to a staff member at town hall. And they would shadow the person and attend meetings, and would be given little assignments to do. If they could reinstitute that. My wife also used to take, for probably 25 years, students each year to, I think it was a 4-day event in Boston at one of those called the Harvard Model Congress. And you had students from all over the country attending, and they ran as a model Congress where they would work on legislation, and over the course of the 4 days, see how government works and craft legislation. I would push a little bit on your principal at Conant and your school committee to bring civics classes back into the classroom, where you learn about the Constitution and how government works.
Yes, I think it's really important to have that foundational understanding. For example, know how the voting process works, why we need laws, and find little ways to engage with community. So, Mr. John, one last question. What is your message to everyone watching this show?
Well, to support people like you, to get involved, and the best thing is to listen to the show and watch the show. And pick up on some of the things that are being discussed. It's for adults to join, see if they're interested in a committee, to go to town meeting. Biggest thing for parents is go to town meeting, and join a committee if you're motivated. And I understand the obstacles in that. I really do get that. Here's what I think is disappointing, and I'd like to see an improvement on there. In our last several town elections, which are typically held in March, the turnouts have been 12, 13, and 14.5%. So in this past election, 2,350 people out of 16,100, eligible voters voted. And that's discouraging for those of us who serve, and particularly for those of us who campaign. The work that we do and the services that are provided are not automatic. The issue is not, endemic to Acton. In Concord, their turnout in their most recent election was 12%. So, but people got to come out more and vote. I mean, that's, people fought and died over the right to vote. And if you have that right to vote, you should exercise it. That's where you got to start.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. John. That was a great message. And everyone watching this show, we are all part of a community, so it's everyone's responsibility to find opportunities to get engaged more, support the community in all possible ways, because every decision made by the town government impacts us directly. So make your voices heard and make an impact with your actions. Mr. John as an amazing leader with an inspiring journey, doing great things, handling some of the critical issues, and leading key projects that helped us move forward in the right direction that will benefit generations to come. Thank you for all your service. So thank you for joining my show today.
Well, I thank you very much.